Distilling Company in Brown County, Indiana.
So for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Time! 3 on the way. Oh! It went in! It went in! And Indiana wins the ball game! Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni! Float game for the win! Ayler's gone! Goodbye, touchdown, Indy! Woo! IU! America! They got a football team now!
Pretty simple. I win. Google me.
You know that I'm the cream of the crop.
Now, from the Hard Truth Studios, here's Jim Coyle.
Back to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Today on this Wednesday, glad to have you. Looking forward to another fun show. Glad to have you, like I said, no matter where and how you're listening, whether it's on one of our great affiliates like 97.7 ESPN, the Ref, always the right call down in Evansville, or up in the region on the Voice of the Region, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM, the Voice of the Region, WJOB. And in Fort Wayne, on Fort Wayne's only sports station, 1380 The Fan. Keep it locked right there on each and every one of those stations throughout the day, wherever you're going. Is anybody going to catch Michigan State? They are looking loud and proud, and they're rolling. They have to get through the season at this point without a blemish is something. Hey, let's go ahead and take our first break. We'll get to Dylan Sinn, bring him in on that conversation. Appreciate you being with us on this Wednesday. We're back with more from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios right after these messages.
At Ben Davis Chevrolet and Ben Davis Ford in Auburn, we're your one-stop shop for all of your automotive needs. We have the area's best selection of over 300 vehicles, including new cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Plus a huge selection of pre-owned vehicles in stock. And if we don't have what you're looking for, we'll find it for you. We also have top-of-the-line service and parts, plus a collision repair center, and we're competitively priced on everything. For sales, service, collision, parts, and more, we do it all. Come see us today or visit us online at BenDavisChevrolet.com and BenDavisFord.com.
Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33, pizza, burgers, beer. If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Wednesday, joined now by our good friend Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on, as always, Jim.
You betcha. Hey, man, going on, the Royal Rumble's coming up down in Indy. We may not want to miss out on that.
Yeah, are you a wrestling fan? I never got really into wrestling myself, but I have several friends who are into it. So is that are you a big wrestling fan?
I grew up with it, but it was not the WWE at the time. So that kind of went away with youth, I guess you would say. But I have a lot better understanding of it now than I did then as well. So that's pretty funny. What's new with you, man?
Oh, not a whole lot. I made it home from Atlanta. I apologize. I was not able to show last week. I was stuck in the Atlanta airport, as many people were. I think probably a lot of people saw that Scott Van Pelt also was stuck in the airport overnight. So it was an odd situation down there. It was snowing outside. People were taking pictures of the snow. It was very cold. So my apologies for missing last week's show, but I am home in Fort Wayne now. So we figured it out eventually.
Well, all that just getting you home safe is all that matters to each and every one of us, brother. I assure you. Speaking of the Royal Rumble that's coming up, I was talking about Purdue, Indiana on Friday. No, I'm just kidding. That good segue, though. Good segue is that Royal Rumble will be happening on Friday in West Lafayette. And I don't know if it could be coming at a worse time for Indiana. They just don't seem to be together. But on the other hand, they didn't play a terrible game against Maryland. They showed resiliency. They stayed in the game. They showed fight. They rallied. They had the lead and probably should have had the win, could have had the win, whichever you want to say. But they didn't get beat by 20.
No, absolutely not. It was the best game they've played this season against a team in the top 25 of the net rankings, which is where Maryland was. I think they were 20th at the time of tip-off. So Purdue is a different animal. I think they're 9th or 10th in the net rankings as we wake up this morning. They just absolutely took Michigan apart the last time they played. What's most concerning for Indiana against Purdue is that Purdue is going to be rested. They played 6 games in 16 days before when they had that Michigan game, and when they play Indiana, they're going to have had a week off. They went from basically Saturday to Friday without a game, so it's going to be a difficult game for Indiana. They're going to go into a place that is going to be keyed up. It's going to be loud, and they are going to have to. My assumption is they are going to have to take a punch in the beginning of this game. Purdue is going to come out on fire in this one. And you're going to probably be down by 5, 6, 7, 8 out of the gate. And after that, it's how do you respond to that, right? We're going to see whether they've developed some resiliency as the season has gone on, because that stadium is going to be keyed up for this one.
Well, speaking of response, actually, I was wondering that it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to the last game, to how that ended, to all that went on, to all the things. There was so much that went into that as well. So how are they going to respond to that, in the fact that they were going to be in such a inhospitable environment? That it's a game that they're not expected to win, but how much fight can and will they show to try to dissuade that? That goes a long way, I think, for fans. You can lose, but you got to go down swinging.
Yeah. And to your point, they did that against Maryland, right? Like you're right that they did that against Maryland. They were down 10 in the second half of that game, and they came all the way back. Obviously, part of that was Miles Rice got hot from the 3-point line, but it was also Malik Renew kind of starting to figure things out, which is good. Like they're going to need, if they're going to do anything down the stretch of the season, they're going to need Malik Renew to be his old self. And we saw that for the first time since his injury down the stretch of that game. So they're going to need that again. They're going to need him to be productive. And I'm interested to see how they go about putting that lineup together for the Purdue game, because Purdue has been starting two bigs. They start Caleb First and Trey Kaufman-Renn next to each other. So my question then becomes, okay, do you start Umar Ballo and Malik Renew together? I think you probably do. And then do you or do you go back with Luke Goody and try to stretch Purdue out? I don't think that would work. I think what Purdue does very well, Caleb First especially, is very good at guarding on the perimeter for a big guy. I think what you need to do with Purdue is try to punish them inside with size. Michigan was not able to do that because they got behind so early and they felt like they were chasing the game and they turned the ball over. What Indiana needs to do is get the ball inside to Renew and Ballo and try to overpower Purdue. Because that's the thing, is without Edey there, you can overpower Purdue a little bit this season. That's the one thing where they're not as big as they usually are. And even playing two big guys, there have been times this year where it seems like they are at a size disadvantage. Indiana can put them at a size disadvantage and kind of overwhelm them inside if Ballo and Renew are playing well together. So I'm interested in that to see kind of the chess match there.
And that would probably be a winning formula if they could lock in 3-point defense, which has been a kryptonite to this Indiana team, or many of these Indiana teams of late. But they're coming up against a team that Braden Smith is not the best 3-point shooter on this team. That's Fletcher Lawyer. He is very, very efficient. He's shooting over 40%. I forget exactly what it was. I had it up yesterday. But and then Braden Smith, he's put up a lot, and he's hitting at a very, very high rate. And he's not the only one. So they're going to have to they're going to face a healthy dose of 3-point shooting in that game.
Yeah, and that is kind of what worries me, is that Indiana, it's not so much that their kryptonite is 3-point shooting, it's that their kryptonite is ball movement, right? Like they have not done a great job on defense this year of really kind of rotating when the ball moves, of switching, of finding their man. They've done it in spurts, but not on a consistent basis. And that's what Purdue does best, right? Braden Smith is really good at finding the open man. He and Trey Kaufman-Renn do that pick and roll where they get the ball into the paint and then Kaufman-Renn sprays it out to whoever's open. And Indiana has given up, I think the stat that I saw is 55 3-pointers over the last 5 games. At 42% shooting for opposing teams from 3 over that span. It's not great for Indiana right now. And you're right. Purdue has 3 guys in its starting lineup who can punish you. It's Braden Smith, it's Fletcher Lawyer, and it's CJ Cox, who, if Indiana fans don't know his name yet, you're going to. That kid is a true freshman, really, really good player, kind of the third guard that they have there. So if you do not have, if you are not strong in your assignments, if you are not disciplined in your rotations, they are going to pick you apart. And I think that we're going to need to see Indiana's best defensive performance this weekend if they are going to keep this game close, because otherwise Purdue will just rain open threes on you, which they did against Michigan. That's what happened in the first half against Michigan. The Wolverines turned the ball over. Purdue got out in transition, and then once they had the lead, Michigan started scrambling, and it was just like, okay, we are now just picking on you and raining threes from every guy on the roster, and that was a huge problem for Michigan.
Yeah, Indiana is going to have to keep it locked down on defense this week, and that's going to be a tough chore because they're going to get ran. This is going to be, I think Purdue is going to try to tempo Indiana as much as they can. I don't know how they'll always be successful with that. And you're right, Indiana absolutely has them outsized, but if Indiana is outsizing them, that means that more than likely Luke Goody is not in the game. And I don't like the Indiana offense when it doesn't have Luke Goody in the game, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And that's, I think that there needs to be a healthy dose of probably the Luke Goody lineup with him at the 4 and then Malik Renew playing the 5 at some point. Like I think what Malik Renew coming back allows you is to get Umar Ballo some more rest, right? Play Renew 20 minutes, play Ballo 30, and play them together for 10 would be my kind of breakdown that I would do. And play Luke Goody a significant amount of minutes as well. I think try to balance it, and especially against a Purdue team that is going to have some wrinkles for you, balance it and see what's working, right? And then go with the hot hand, essentially. I think that's what happened against Maryland. Was late in the game. I was calling I was actually wrong. I called in the early in the second half of that Maryland game. I said, look, Malik Renew doesn't have it today. Play Luke Goody for the duration. And then Luke Goody picked up his fourth foul with about 13 minutes left or whatever it was. And they went to Renew, and lo and behold, he delivered. And he had 4 baskets in a span of like 5 minutes or something like that to help them get back into that game. And Mike Woodson, to his credit, rolled with a hot hand down the stretch of that game with Malik Renew. So I think it's one of those things where you see what's working. You try both of them in the first half. You see what's working, and you roll with that hot hand against whatever Purdue is doing. And I'm sure Purdue will make adjustments. And then you see in the second half, is the same thing working? If not, make an adjustment to the adjustment and go from there. And I think it's gonna be a chess match in this game, and I'm interested to see that.
Yeah, and well, boy, don't say things like that to Indiana fans right now. Chess match. That does not make them feel good. There seems to be discontent out there in that last game, in the Maryland game. It seemed like there was on the court, it was typical. I don't have a problem with guys kind of going at each other sometimes, because that can just be the heat of the game. And I'm talking about, say, teammates. Who you should have covered this. Why weren't you there? Blah, blah, blah. But it's happened more than once here lately. It happened more than once in the Maryland game. It just seemed like that was kind of a permeated thing. And if that is the case, that's hard to overcome, man.
Yeah, like the only silver lining there is that you have this entire week off before you play Purdue to kind of figure some of those things out. But you're right, you could see it. Like I was not at that game. I watched it on TV at home, but even on the broadcast, you could see repeatedly Maryland makes a basket, has an open shot, and you can see guys kind of pointing at each other, being like, "That was your man. You have to pick that up," and kind of pointing at each other. And like we're 21 games into the season. Obviously, you're not going to hit every defensive mark. You're not gonna make the right read every single time. But you shouldn't be seeing that multiple times a game, where guys are really like pointing at each other and being like, "Hey, you were not in the right spot here. No, you were not in the right spot here." That's something that has to be figured out at this point in the season, and it is a problem that it's not. I think it's fair to say, and so. You have a week before this Purdue game, 5 days off before this Purdue game to figure that out. And you're going to need to, because Purdue stresses you in that way. They move the ball so well. They're so unselfish they've made their bones this season by turning good shots into great shots with extra passes, right? And if Indiana is not on its rotation, if it's not locked down defensively, they're going to pick you apart. And that's the problem that Indiana faces right now. You might be muted, Jim.
Yes, you are correct. You mentioned earlier that in regards to the paint play, that Indiana should be able to dominate, and you are absolutely correct. You've got Umar Ballo in there now, a pretty big dude, and if Purdue throws one of their guys in them, they're very thin, they're tall. You've got some 7-footers, and then of course, if you've got both Ballo and Renew in, then one of those is going to be on Trey Kaufman-Renn. Is Renew athletic enough to guard Trey Kaufman-Renn? This is the guy that is really tends towards picking up easy fouls.
Yeah. So my guess is you put Umar Ballo on Trey Kaufman-Renn, because I think Ballo is a good enough shot blocker that he's going to at least frustrate TKR. And then you put Malik Renew on Caleb First, who is not a particularly strong offensive threat. He's more of a I'm going to go to the glass and get some like basically taking out the garbage type of baskets. And so I do think that that's probably the matchup that you want. Is he's not going to draw a lot of fouls against Renew, except maybe on rebounds when he gets position. So I think that that's probably how I would do it. Obviously, TKR is going to do what he can to get Ballo in foul trouble, and you'll have to monitor that. But I've liked what Umar Ballo has done defensively the last couple of games. He's been pretty disciplined. He's gotten some nice blocks. I think that he can at least frustrate Kaufman-Renn. Now you're gonna have to do well in pick and roll defense as well, because that's what Purdue likes to do. Is they like to run Braden Smith off a Trey Kaufman-Renn screen and then have Braden Smith drop a pocket pass to Kaufman-Renn in the paint. And that's going to be something where Umar Ballo has to be disciplined and make sure that Trey Kaufman-Renn can't get to his floater that he likes to shoot, his kind of spin move that he likes to put on people. That's where you're going to see him need to be disciplined. So that's how I would do it. Try to keep Malik Renew out of foul trouble by putting him on Caleb first, and see if you can get Umar Ballo to frustrate Kaufman-Renn.
We've got Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with us right now, and we've got more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. We'll take a quick break and talk some more about the Big Ten. I mentioned earlier their third-place team is Michigan, and they're unranked right now. I don't like polls. I'm like Mike DeCourcy. I think polls are kind of dumb, but regardless of that fact, your third place team is not ranked. That does not show exactly great depth. But we've got lots more coming up, and we're back with it on the backside from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios.
Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum, Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Maria in Florida, is the place to be, and not just because they have unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com.
At Ben Davis Chevrolet and Ben Davis Ford in Auburn, we're your one-stop shop for all of your automotive needs. We have the area's best selection of over 300 vehicles, including new cars, trucks, vans, and SUVs. Plus a huge selection of pre-owned vehicles in stock. And if we don't have what you're looking for, we'll find it for you. We also have top-of-the-line service and parts, plus a collision repair center, and we're competitively priced on everything. For sales, service, collision, parts, and more, we do it all. Come see us today or visit us online at bendavischevrolet.com and bendavisford.com.
Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Wednesday. Made it through, guess what? You're about to be over the hump. Whoop, bop, bop. I'm going to have to get some sound effects in here. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with me, covers the Hoosiers, the Boilers, the Irish, and many other things, especially if it's in the Fort Wayne area. It covers it all. Do y'all still cover the Mad Ants? Not cover, but as far as reporting on them, or is that a sore subject for a Fort Wayner? And what do you call a Fort Wayner?
Yeah, Fort Wayner is fine. We do not cover the Mad Ants anymore. It is a little bit of a sore subject. People were not particularly pleased with the way they left, and kind of the way they were run over the last several seasons here.
But it's really that's the Pacers, so it's not.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. It used to be a little bit more hands off, and then about a decade ago, and then the Pacers kind of took a more active role, and it was not quite as Fort Wayne friendly. I think it's fair to say. And so, first of all, the team wasn't quite as good, and second of all, it just wasn't quite as Fort Wayne friendly. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a sore subject, but we like Kyle Menges. We're big Kyle Menges fans here in Fort Wayne, obviously. Warsaw guy who's playing for the Mad Ants now, so that's a lot of fun. We watch them from afar.
Well, there you go. It's it could be worse. It could be worse. We just finished up talking about Indiana and Purdue coming up on Friday as the Hoosiers travel to West Lafayette to take on a pretty hot Purdue team, although they did take an L here recently. And I keep forgetting who that was too. I don't know.
Ohio State.
Ohio State, a team that Indiana had just beaten, but you can't go on that because I've talked about Illinois. Illinois is probably the most befuddling team to me. They're really good, and I mean really good. If they've got Kasparas Jokichanas in the game and foul free, that dude is just he's just a problem.
Yeah.
Period.
Absolutely.
He is just a problem. And then if Ivicic is doing his thing as well, that might be the best 1-2 punch in the Big Ten. It's not that Ivicic is that great, but Jokichanas can just do so much damage in a short period of time. We saw him at Indiana. He just torched them. And this dude's a true freshman, people. Was playing in high school last year. I mean, he's a one and done, right?
It kind of seems like it. Yeah, I don't know if he has like NBA athleticism, but I mean, he has such a deep bag and he is such a versatile player. I feel like some NBA team would pick him just to kind of as a developmental prospect if nothing else. So I would not be surprised if he's a one and done. He's really good. And obviously he missed that game. They lost to USC, and I think he missed that game if I remember correctly, which kind of explains why they lost. So yeah, like you said, Illinois, really befuddling team. They've lost to Northwestern and USC, and which is kind of odd considering how well they played in some other games, but really darn good team. Absolutely.
Yesterday, it was announced, I think it was yesterday, yeah, that the All-American teams, McDonald's All-American teams came out. Big time an honor. I mean, this goes way back. And I mean, some of the names that are, in the history of this are incredible. In the Indy area with 2. I mean, that again speaks to basketball in the state of Indiana, because I'll be honest with you, Trent Sisley has upped his game so much, and I know he was nominated, but I think that he could play in this game easily. His game has been elevated.
Yeah, absolutely. Like every time I watch that dude, I come away thinking he's underrated. Like I know he's a top 60 prospect or whatever it is in the rankings, but every time I watch that guy play, I'm like, this is a guy who is who can do everything you could ask on the basketball court. He shoots, he dribbles, he passes, he defends. It's really, really impressive how much of a complete package he is, and he is the 3rd best player in the state this year. Which is, I mean, obviously doesn't go to high school in Indiana anymore, but in terms of guys who are from Indiana, he's the 3rd best guy in the state this year, which tells you how deep the talent in Indiana is right now. It's a really good class.
Oh, without question, because look, you've got Braylon Mullins, who is on there. You've got Jalen Harrelson, you got Trent Sisley we just talked about, but there's many others. Mark Zachary is the best athlete in the state of Indiana. I'm going to say he's going to go to Notre Dame and play football and most likely basketball for Micah Shrewsbury. Speaking of your Irish, they're not doing much this year. I would have expected a little more. I know it's early in Micah's tenure, but boy, they're really kind of taking it on the chin.
Yeah, part of it was that Marcus Burton was out for a significant early season stretch there, and then when he's come back, he struggled to get back into a rhythm. But yeah, it is. I think they're 10-10, I believe, after beating Georgia Tech last night. It's not where they expected to be. I think it's fair to say. Obviously, they've been building throughout his tenure. Kind of the plan was building for year 3. Which is a little bit different than the way it's gone for a lot of teams in the transfer portal era, where you come in and bring in a whole new team and kind of go from there. But the plan has been, we are going to be slow and steady, and in year 3 really kind of elevate. I would expect them to be a preseason top 25 team next year. But the problem is that they haven't built the momentum to that they expected to. Obviously, Burton being hurt doesn't help. But it hasn't, the rest of the team has not kind of matured around him like you would have hoped. And so obviously they have good players. Braden Shrewsbury, Micah's son, is a very good player. Marcus Burton is a good player. They have guys who can rebound and defend. It just hasn't quite come together yet. And it's one of those things where if you want to really elevate in year 3, you need to have a strong finish to this season, especially with that number 4 class in the country coming in next year. You want to show that class, hey, we're ready. When you get here, we're ready to roll. I think that's what the rest of the season is going to be about.
Yeah, and the Big Ten season is clinging on. Michigan, I mentioned a couple times, in 3rd place in the standings right now, but they're not even in the top 25 rankings. Although they're 15-5 overall. You've got Wisconsin, who's 16-4. Maryland is 16-5. UCLA right behind them at 15-6. So Michigan's kind of fallen back into what I'm calling the second level now. It had been a 3-team upper tier for the early part of the first half of the season. Now it's a 2-team upper tier. Michigan State and Purdue, and Michigan State is clearly the team on top. They're undefeated at 9-0. They're 18-2 overall, and undefeated at home. Michigan, though, undefeated at home. Their losses are away from home, but Michigan State is just looking solid. I don't expect them to go unblemished, but I think that they are undoubtedly the best team in the Big Ten. Purdue's a really good team. I can see them as being absolutely being a second weekend team in the tournament. But after that, I'm sure there may be a few that make it. But boy, it's really hit or miss in the Big Ten after that.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think you're right that Michigan State is probably the best team right now. I think it's a clear top 2 with Michigan State and Purdue. I think that there was a top 3. Michigan State, Purdue, and Michigan. And then we saw Purdue play Michigan at Mackey Arena last week, and it was a chance for Michigan to really make a statement. And instead it was Purdue that made the statement. They just ran them off the floor. That game was over in about 5 minutes. And so I do think that, Purdue lost that game to Ohio State. It was a result of tired legs, I think, coming off of that West Coast trip. They were up by 16 and let that game get away in the second half. You could tell they were tired. And so I do think that one thing that's going to make it interesting is that Michigan State has played a relatively soft schedule in the Big Ten so far. They still have to play Oregon. They still have to play Purdue. They still have to play Michigan, I believe, twice. They still have to play UCLA. They still have to play Maryland. So I do think it's going to be one of those things where the schedule down the stretch is going to catch up to them a little bit. I think they'll probably lose once or twice or 3 times. And so then it becomes, okay, can Purdue win enough to really make it a race, and I think they can. So I think it's going to be a 2-team race at the top. I do think that Oregon is very good. I think that Illinois is good. Illinois has probably lost too many games already to be in the Big Ten title race. But I would not, if you told me right now that Illinois is going to make the deepest run of anyone in the tournament out of the Big Ten, I wouldn't be surprised. Same with Maryland, quite frankly. I think Maryland, for as much as they almost lost to Indiana on Sunday, I think Maryland is a very, very good basketball team and probably will make a run in March as well. So the Big Ten has some teams that can make a run this year. I think it's more like a chance of 4 or 5 Sweet 16 teams than it is a champion. But I do think there will be some depth in the Big Ten by the end of the season.
Well, and speaking of the depth, Indiana, their next 4 games is against the top 4 teams on the Big Ten standings list. Not in this order, but Michigan State, Purdue, Michigan, and Wisconsin, with Michigan being the lone home game, I'll add. So that it makes it even more difficult. But Indiana, I think that they have a much better chance against Michigan now than I would have thought a week ago or so, because Michigan has shown some cracks. They also run 2 bigs, but they have a big that can step out and knock down 3-point shots, and Golden will take 3-point shots, although he's not an efficient shooter from out there. But that's going to be an interesting game for a number of reasons. But first and foremost, because I think it's going to be kind of awkward when they announce Dusty May's name as the head coach, and he is going to get this unbelievably loud rousing of applause. And then when it's Mike Woodson, I think it's going to be a little shaky. So I think that's going to be an opportunity for fans to display their thoughts at the moment.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I know what you're talking about. Yes, that's probably what's going to happen, and it's going to be a little bit awkward. I do think that one way for Mike Woodson to quiet that a little bit is for them to go out and play well against Michigan. I think that is going to be a chess match of a game, because like you said, Michigan does run the 2 bigs, and what those 2 bigs are is they're both playmakers. They both pass the ball really well. Danny Wolf, the kid from Yale, is one of the best playmaking big men in the entire country. He's such a good passer, and they run like big to big pick and roll with 7-footers, which is something you almost never see. I think Matt Painter was asked about it before their game against Michigan. He was like, I've never seen that with 2 guys that big. And so it's one of those things where Indiana is going to have to really have a defensive game plan, right? How do you go about attacking them? I think one way that you can do it is what we saw with Purdue is try to pressure their ball handlers. I think Trey Donaldson, who is their young point guard, got rattled in that Michigan game, or in that Purdue game, I should say. And so I think you can pressure him into some mistakes, and can Miles Rice and Trey Galloway make them pay for that? And I think that that's something that Indiana can look into. But other than that, Umar Ballo and Malik Renew are going to have to be really good on defense, again, in communication against Wolf and Golden. So I am fascinated by that. Again, chess match type of game. Maybe Mike Woodson goes out there and wins a chess match against Danny May, and you kind of silence the critics, at least for one day. But that is kind of the opportunity that's going to be in front of Indiana in that game. Obviously, as you said, a little bit awkward, probably in the crowd, but then you got to go play a basketball game, right? And so we'll see how that plays out.
Well, and you add to it that it's going to be a home game, so that all of that is going to take place in Simon Scott Assembly Hall. The end of the game is going to be very important. Winning or losing is going to be huge, I think. Well, obviously, but that just because it's just there's so much added to it because it's a home game. You know, if this was a road game, the noise would not be as well. It wouldn't be there, obviously, but it's kind of a perfect storm. I don't think they go to Michigan to play. Michigan's not a team they play twice, so that's how it worked out. That's how the schedule worked out. But this next 4-game stretch for Indiana can also man, this can kind of bury their season in essence. They're on a 2-game losing streak at the moment. And if they're able to go 1-3 in this, I think that would be a 500 win for them. Although going 1-3 doesn't really help them, in my opinion. They've got to go 2-2 if they want it to gain anything, if you want to add anything to it. Otherwise, it's 50-50 or under to me at best.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I thought it was interesting after the Maryland game, they didn't move a single spot in the net rankings. Basically, it was a complete wash. That's kind of what Indiana has been the last couple of games. Is they're just spinning their wheels, right? They take a step forward, they take a step back. They're clearly if the season ended today, they'd be on the wrong side of the bubble. I think you need to go at least 2-2 or even 3-1 in these next 4 in order to change where you are in that kind of NCAA tournament conversation, right? You need to start stacking wins here, and you need to do it pretty quickly if anything is going to change. And Maryland, that's why Maryland was such a disappointment at the end of that game, because you had an enormous win in your pocket and you let it get away. I think that's why it was so frustrating at the end, was that it was there for the taking. And so, again, that was, like you said at the beginning of this, it was a good, well-played game from Indiana up until the last minute and a half, right? Maybe there's signs of improvement there. Maybe there's things you can take away, and you take that into this 4-game stretch and say, hey, we're a better basketball team than we showed at the end of that game. Let's play some better basketball.
Yeah, and the net rankings, I was looking at those yesterday. Sometimes they don't make a lot of sense. You've got Penn State. The Big Ten, there are 14 teams in the top 51 of the net. That does show some depth right there. But that 51st team is Penn State. They're 3-7 in the conference play, which means, well, that's a horrible record, but they have 1 win over top 10 Purdue. That's their only quad 1 win, I believe. Indiana has 2 quad 1 wins, but they are substantially down below a team that they beat at their own place. Same with Ohio State. It's kind of weird, but I think that has more to do with Indiana's play against other mediocre teams.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's the same. It's the same thing as last year. We went around and around with this last year. You didn't win your games, your non-conference bye games. Essentially, you didn't win them by enough points. They won every single one of those games by anywhere between 9 and 12 points. And in order to have a good net, if you win those, if you play those same teams and you win by 25 instead of 12, you're probably 30th in the net right now. Or alternatively, if you hadn't lost to Louisville by 28, and if you lost that game by 8 instead, you would be probably 10 to 15 spots higher than you are. But they didn't win the games they needed to win by enough, and they lost the games they lost by too many. And so now you need to win a whole bunch of big games down the stretch to have a chance.
And you mentioned a team like Louisville who has gotten better. Their numbers are improving greatly because they're winning. But Indiana has just not. They've lost more than they've won. So you're only going to go down and going in the wrong direction for Indiana. Purdue is. Does Purdue have enough to challenge Michigan State for the Big Ten championship?
I think so. I think they're playing really good basketball right now. What I've been impressed with Purdue is how good their defense has been over the last several games. Again, Ohio State was an outlier because they were a little bit tired coming off that West Coast trip, I think. But outside of that, their defense has been lights out for the last several games. And that was a problem for them in November, December. They weren't really stopping anybody. And now they are. They've really figured some things out, and this team has improved significantly as the season goes on. So I think they can. I think they have a more manageable schedule down the stretch than Michigan State does, and they play Michigan State. So they'll have a chance to get back into it. I think it's a 2-team race at the top. I'd make Michigan State the favorite for obvious reasons, that they have a 2-game lead in the loss column right now at the midway point, but I would not count out Purdue, absolutely.
No, you certainly can't, because there's still 11 games to go. We're not quite to the midway point of the Big Ten season, people. And speaking of which, getting back to Indiana for a second, in my mind, there's no question that a change is coming at the end of this season for Indiana. Partly because I don't see any possible way of them turning this around from what I've seen on court, from what I've seen play. I just don't think there's enough there. One bright surprise was watching Miles Rice kind of come alive from behind the 3-point line, especially when they needed him. Luke Goody was not available. And boy, he knocked down 3 of those things in kind of quick succession. And that, if it wasn't for that, we wouldn't even be talking about the end of the Maryland game, to be quite honest with you. But it was good to see him step up. But boy, they're guard poor is all you can say about Indiana. They're just guard poor. They don't have really good guards. And I think Miles Rice has been very consistent for the most part, but nobody else has. And there's no one for him to really run in there.
Yeah, the problem that they've run into is Kanan Carlisle has just lost confidence in his jumper. Kanan Carlisle, I believe, is a very good basketball player, and I think will be a good basketball player at some point. And he's very good on defense. He really is a playmaker on offense. The problem is that he just has no confidence in his jump shot right now, and so he can't shoot from the outside. He can't stretch the floor, and when he gets to the rim and gets fouled, he's not making his free throws. And so it's a really tough situation for him, because I think he can be a very good player at some point. It's just probably not going to happen anytime soon, because he needs to probably have an offseason to rework the jumper. Trey Galloway is so hit or miss. I think it's probably coming off that injury. It's just not there for him on offense on a consistent basis. Anthony Leal is just, Anthony Leal is a very, very good player. He has turned into a guy. He's the type of player that you need if you're going to go to an Elite 8 or a Final 4. He's the type of guy you need coming off the bench and giving you 12 really good minutes every game. He's not good enough offensively to be a starting guy that plays 25, I think. And because he doesn't even stretch the floor as a shooter. He made 2 fantastic plays at the end of that Maryland game. That is a little bit different on offense, but those are more plays of opportunity because he's always in the right spot. So you're right. The guards there's not been as much depth there as you would have liked. I love what Rice has done. I think he can be a very good player for them, but they need more. And I think if they're going to turn this season around, it's going to take either Kanan Carlisle or Trey Galloway really stepping up as an offensive force. We haven't seen enough to indicate that's going to happen.
What do you think the end result of this game is going to be?
I think Purdue wins, obviously. I don't think I can't predict an Indiana victory. I do think it's closer than kind of a lot of people might expect. I think probably somewhere in 75 to 67, I would say. How about that? 75, 67. Yes. I think Purdue makes enough threes to get over the top, but I think Indiana plays well enough that they don't get run off the floor. That is my prediction. I think they come into this game with some pride, and they find a way to keep this one close until the end.
Closer game than I would have anticipated. We'll find out. Dylan Sinn with the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. Make sure you're giving him a follow. And if you're in the Fort Wayne area, keeping up with all his content, my brother. Thank you so much as always.
Absolutely, Jim. Thanks for having me on. This was fun.
You betcha. That's going to wrap it up for this hour. We've got lots more coming up, including Cal Neddenriep and Rick Bozich, with that and much more right after these messages.
Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty at cheryl@indyhomepros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today.
Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33 Pizza. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue. And you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Wednesday. Waiting, hopefully for Cal Neddenriep to join us from the Indy Star. Looking forward to talking about these 2 McDonald's All-Americans that the Indianapolis area was able to produce yesterday, but shows the continued contributions of Indiana to the state of basketball, and without question continuing to produce its level of talent. I mentioned Trent Sisley, but there's so many others, Mark Zachary and many other guys that are going off to play Division I basketball next season. It's what makes Indiana the greatest state in the country when it comes to hooping. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star joining us now. Kyle, how are you doing, sir? How's your week been going?
Doing well, Jim. Had the city tournament on championship on Monday and rolling right along here. So looking forward to the weekend.
I've been talking a little bit about the fact that the Indy area has produced not 1 but 2 McDonald's All-Americans, and that's a big deal, man. That's still a big list to get on, and to be able to have an area that produces 2 guys like that is also huge, especially for a state the size of Indiana, but obviously known for growing the basketball players.
Yeah, I thought there might be a third one potentially with Trent Sisley, not from the Indy area, but from Indiana originally, but potentially Xavier Robinson from Lawrence North. But I had a good feeling about both Mullins and Jalen Harrelson getting on that team, and I think Mullins was maybe more of a an outlier like a year ago, but then the way he's played in the last year, just trying to think. Probably about the last year, yeah. I mean, he's really kind of come on, and no real shocker that he made the team. But yeah, I mean, the fact that they only take 24 kids every year, I guess 48 when you count the girls, but 24 boys every year, man, that's a low number, and to be able to make that, and you kind of notice every year it seems like there's less and less of the traditional high school players on there too. So I think that's a cool thing that he made it coming from Greenfield Central, and certainly deserving, man. He's definitely one of the best players I've covered in my time doing this, and Harrelson is too. I just haven't covered him as regularly, but you could see it even when he was here the first 2 years of high school that he was a special player, and both those two are really good people too. Like easy to talk to, and Braylon wasn't maybe as easy to talk to before, but he's kind of come along in that regard. So, but yeah, it's cool to see that happen for them. I wish the game was closer. It's in Brooklyn. I wish it was in Chicago like it used to be, so I could drive up there. But it'll be fun. It'll be cool to see them on that stage.
Yeah, and both of those guys have been came up through the Indiana basketball system. All three of them, actually, for that matter. Uh, Jalen used to be on Fishers, right? Was it Fishers?
Yeah, his first 2 years he played at Fishers. His family, they're from Anderson. His brother actually plays at Liberty Christian in Anderson. But yeah, he came, made a splash almost immediately. I remember seeing him in the preseason workouts when I go around and do kind of preview stuff, and probably October, or might have been even earlier, it was September, October of that freshman year. And he was out there playing with the varsity guys, of course. And you could see already that he was going to be, and they had a really good senior class that year. They ended up going 20, I think 21-3 or something like that. And but he was already like, if not their best player, their most valuable asset as a player. And he was, and then the next year he was outstanding too, and then left to go to La Lumiere. But yeah, he's always been in that top 10 or 12 or 15 range as far as the national rankings go. I think he's right around 10 right now. But so I don't think there's any real doubt. He's been with the USA basketball organization and doing things that always, I think, helps your chances as well. But yeah, he'll be really good. I think he'll be a really good player at Notre Dame too.
Yeah, and it was unfortunate that neither of the state schools are either able to capitalize on getting their talents. Notre Dame, though, is still an in-state school, but a lot of people do not consider Notre Dame an in-state school for obvious reasons. But yeah, UConn is going to get the services of Braylon Mullins, it appears. So that's where he is headed, and that probably gave him a boost as well. We talked a little bit earlier about Trent Sisley, and that he's probably underrated, and especially he has gone down to Montverde and had a good year. He's a player that they depend on and has become an important part of in the role of what they do down there, and that means a ton because of the talent he plays against every time out.
Yeah, and I hope when the Chipotle Nationals are coming here again this year. They're coming to Hamilton Southeastern this year, and so they'll be in the area anyway. And I think that's early April. And I'm hoping his team. I'm sure they will. I would think they would be part of that tournament. I think if you're in the top, they take 8 boys teams. And last I checked, they were ranked, pretty in that range somewhere. So hoping to see him play in person again. I've seen a little bit on TV when they've played, and obviously some Twitter clips and things like that. But yeah, I mean he's really having a good year. Thought he might potentially be a McDonald's All-American as well. But that's pretty tough to make that team, and especially if you're not in the top 20 rankings, and there's only so much to go around. But it does seem to me like he's playing really well. I knew he would. I mean, he's just a hard worker. So I think he'll maximize anything he gets out of that experience down there. The chance to play with those type of players, and you know, obviously still wish he'd be here and you could see him, play high school basketball here. But I totally get it, and I think it's working out for him. I think he'll be ready when he gets to IU next season. So I think that's only going to help him.
Well, without question, and the Indiana and the rest of the area, the state for that matter, is going on right now. Teams again each week we talk. There are teams that are good from all regions of the state right now, which makes it fun. Whether you're talking from Evansville up to the top of the state to the Gary area, all across and then back down to Jeffersonville, New Albany. Good teams everywhere right now, Kyle.
Yeah, I've been doing the Super 25, which kind of helps me keep up to date. And I try to see some of these teams when if they come here or try to get out and see them at some point along the way. Doing the Super 25 kind of helps keep me up to date on even if I don't see them, I'm able to just kind of visit on what they do. And yeah, I mean of course, Central Indiana is really good, and Fishers is, as we move week by week, I think more and more they're the number one team, and very clearly I'm not even sure. Number 2 is up for grabs. I think Crown Point right now is stake claim to that by being 12-0. But shoot, they only beat Chesterton by 1 point, and that's a rivalry game, but a tough one for them. And Greenfield Central's right up there. I think Westfield is underrated, and Drew Hafner, their junior, really good shooter. His brother Cam Hafner playing at Evansville now, and a couple of years ago when he was with Braden Smith, he had a really good run at it with that team. So they're a very outstanding team. Lawrence North, of course, but yeah, if you go down the list, I mean, Anderson, Warsaw, Evansville Rights, South Bend St. Joe, Brownstown Central's good again, even without Jack Benner in Class 3A. They've got most of that team is back, other than Benner and their point guard from last year's team. Fort Wayne is a really good team up in Fort Wayne. There's a couple others up there too, like Blackhawk Christian. That's tough. So you've got some Homestead's coming on. So you've got some teams all around the area. Northridge is a good team up north. Princeton down south. So not unusual. There's good basketball all over the place, and in the small schools too. The small schools don't normally make those statewide lists of those top teams, but there's some really good stories going on. Like Clay City right now is having a really good year over in Class 1A over near Terre Haute, and I had a chance to see them against Bloomfield last week. That's a team I think could really make some noise this year. But yeah, it's fun. It's the last month or so until we get the sectionals, which is kind of sad, but hopefully get to see a lot more basketball here in the next month, and then of course a lot in March, of course.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say we're in the last month of everything now, so it's getting closer and closer, and it'll be interesting to see who's able to do anything, if anybody can stop Fishers at the top or not. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star, make sure you're giving him a follow to keep up with all things Indiana high school basketball and football. Appreciate you as always, my friend.
You bet. Thanks a lot, Jim.
Have a great day. That's Kyle Neddenriep joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, as always, on this Wednesday from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. Up next, the great Rick Bozich. On the other side, Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing, or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition, or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. Ugly Grouper, located on beautiful Anna Maria in Florida, is the place to be, and not just because they have unforgettable meals, including locally sourced seafood. The Ugly Grouper has your favorite craft beers and cocktails, along with live music every day. The Ugly Grouper is family-friendly, able to host private parties, and has the biggest grouper you've ever seen. The Ugly Grouper is the place to be on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Tell them Indiana Sports Beat sent you. Go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. When it comes to apparel and promotions, Freethink has you covered, literally, whether it's 24 or 200 shirts for sports leagues, businesses, or groups. Freethink Apparel and Promotions can also create your very own merchandising store. Freethink Apparel and Promotions did it for Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and they can do it for you. Whether it's screen printing, embroidery, digital printing, promotional products, vehicle wraps, or anything else under the promotional line. See what Freethink Apparel and Promotions can do for you at freethinkapparel.com. Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Wednesday. We're fortunate enough to be joined now by the great Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Jim. How are you?
Cannot complain. The snow's still hanging on out there. It's slowly going away, man. That's the longest hangover snow I can remember in a long time.
Yeah, this will be the fourth full week, I think, right? Yeah, I almost fell down. I was out before I logged into your show. I had to take Ruby for a walk, and she walked up in a yard that was still pretty icy, and it almost got ugly.
It's happened to me multiple times. Oh, you probably haven't seen the new engineer to the show.
I saw him last week. How's he doing?
Oh, okay. Good. Doing the same thing to me, man. Taking me to places I probably shouldn't go, and I'm like, oh, hey, that was ice. But yeah, it's still good. All good. Before I forget, did you know that SEC teams are 54-54 against each other?
I saw that video and I was like, what just happened?
There you go, people. You want to know if you have any other questions about the previous 4 years at Indiana? That pretty much sums it up and gives you the answer.
Did he ever catch himself and correct it, or did he just motor on and pretend like it didn't happen? Because I thought what he was going to say was like they were 54-11 against power conference opponents or something, which they might have been. But then when he said 54-54, is like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, apparently he fell for a troll who put something out there and he didn't do the research behind it.
They've kind of slipped they started off pretty strong, but they're kind of sliding back to mediocrity as the season goes on.
Yeah, the record was good, but their net ranking was horrible. I don't know that they ever got out of the 90s. But speaking of the net rankings, I was looking at yesterday. Penn State is an anomaly there because they're like 51st. They're the 14th Big Ten team in the top 51, but they're 3-7 in conference play, and includes a loss to Indiana. They do have a win over Purdue, but to be that much higher, that shows you that one game, in addition to some other games not being as close as Indiana's were, I guess, but they have a win over Virginia Tech, so there's an out-of-conference win that Indiana doesn't have. But, boy, those numbers, they bite you. They did it. They bit Indiana last year, and they just didn't – it's like they didn't learn a lesson and are repeating the same thing over. Sounds like the definition of insanity, doesn't it?
I guess I'm surprised that Penn State is ranked that high because when you look at their schedule, Virginia Tech's one of the 3 or 4 worst teams in the ACC, which is not a good league. So they don't really have any wins out of conference that jump out and get you. But what they did do was, they won the first game by 40, the second game by 50, and then 30, and then 20, and then 13, and then 20, and another one by 20. So everybody they played, they blew out. So I guess you get points for that.
Absolutely. That's part of last year and this year, Indiana winning so many of those pre-conference non-con games by less double or single digits. And that happened again this season. Right now, that is not Indiana's problem as they are or about to begin the toughest 4-game stretch, maybe in all of the Big Ten Conference for certain. This is a slaughterhouse of a schedule. You can't lie with 4 games coming up, 3 of them on the road. I think these are all against ranked teams on the road. The home game now is against Michigan, who is not ranked at the moment, just fell out, but recently in the top 25. That game will have implications for other reasons. How ugly do you think it might be at Michigan in the pregame introductions?
I think it's got a chance to be pretty uncomfortable. I think it's got a chance to be really uncomfortable, depending on what happens over the next couple games for both teams, but mainly Indiana if they get blown out at Purdue. on Friday night, which I think most people expect it'll be a 12 to 20 point loss would be my guess. And then they go to Wisconsin, where they haven't won since Bob Knight was the coach, and lose again, probably by double digits. It's already, they're already feisty. They're already upset. They're already frustrated. They're already wondering what's going to be done about it. And to see, Dusty May on the other sideline will only exacerbate it. I'm sure the students will probably try and come up with something super clever if I had to make a guess.
Yeah, well, certainly. Now, the best thing Indiana could do is go out and win that game. And fortunately, of these 4 teams, Michigan is playing the least, not as well as any of the other 3. Their play has fallen off a little bit. I guess it started with that game that they lost, overtime loss to Minnesota, which at the time was one of the cellar dwellers, as they're battling to try to climb out of that. But their play has slipped just a little bit. They're the 3rd place team in the Big Ten, but they're not ranked in the top 25.
Yeah. They played a lot of close games recently. I mean, they beat Penn State by 4. Northwestern, they beat in overtime. Minnesota, they lost to in overtime. Although Minnesota's actually kind of picked up the pace here recently. Haven't they won like 3 games, I think?
Yeah, they have. They're picking up what they're doing.
That becomes a more valuable win for Indiana then as the season goes on. It's not. I mean, Michigan is probably a borderline top 25 team. They've got a few issues. I don't think they have really a great shooter on the team. Donaldson has done some good things, but other than that, I guess they don't have another great shooter. But it's more interesting to me what's going to happen Friday night, because we're both games were blowouts last year, right?
Oh yeah,
with Edie. And the year before, Indiana got a split. The year before that, they got a sweep. Getting swept by Purdue by double figures in back-to-back seasons would not be a good look.
No, it would not. And Indiana has to take these opportunities that are coming up and find a way to win somewhere. I know it's tough. It's a tough ask. It would be a tough ask of any team, but especially a team that seems to be kind of in disarray. They can say that there was no confusion and this and that, but there just seems to be constant confusion. If you watch, when you're watching the games on the floor, guys that are like, hey, that's your guy. Why didn't you slide over? Why didn't you switch? Whatever's going on. There's a lot of talk going on, which you want conversation. I get it. But you hope that conversation comes before or during the play, not after the fact that you've gotten beaten or whatever the case may be.
It's hard to come up with a scenario that could have played out worse than the way it played out, from the point of Galloway being the guy who got fouled and him, not even making the front end of the 1-and-1. That was critical. The defensive breakdown, maybe a missed travel call that led to the Maryland 3. But the thing that stings about the Maryland 3 was those dudes were getting open threes the whole game. They finished 12 for 24 from 3. So that's, to me, the issue of like, how can you possibly let a team shoot 50% from 3? I think they're a decent 3-point shooting team, but they're not known as an elite 3-point shooting team. And then to come down, and then the initial choice to have Renew drive the baseline from the right corner when he's left-handed, which means he can't go left because the baseline's blocking him. He needs to go right, and that's not his strong hand. And he wasn't healthy anyway and didn't have a tremendous lift, I didn't think, during the game. And then if he gets fouled, he's an okay free throw shooter. He's not a great free throw shooter. I thought that was strange. And then the last play was just absolute, chaos of, you're in. It's like, who's on first, who's on second? No, come in. No, get out. Go, on second hand, go back in. And then to inbounds the ball and have 2 guys standing in the corner. where Rice had nowhere to go, and he's surrounded by Renew and 2 other defenders and has to throw up a 3-point shot. I mean, that I can't remember. I've seen a inbounds play botched to that level. So that was just however many seconds it was. What was it? 35 seconds, 40 seconds, whatever it was. If you just watch that and just ignore the rest of the season, you can say, what is going on here?
Yeah, it was definitely a
coaching malpractice is what I called it.
I saw that a Keystone Cops moment of sorts out there. But now moving forward, Indiana goes to their arch rival. Purdue is a team that is playing very well. They're the only team, I think, that is really playing to the level of trying to catch Michigan State, which I'm not sure that can happen. I think Michigan State is a better team, but they're not going to lose. The last thing that they want is to lose to this Indiana team, period, much less at home. Indiana is going to have to find that's why I when they keep putting Renew and Ballo together, I'm like, man, if you don't have Goody out there, I just don't think you have a chance. And especially in a game like this where Purdue has 2 guys that are shooting lights out, Fletcher Lawyer and Braden Smith have lit it up from behind the 3-point line, and that's without Zach Edey. They're probably shooting better this year than they were with Zach Edey, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and Kaufman-Wren is, in the running to be, he's at Ken Palm ranked one of the 5 most efficient players in the Big Ten. I mean, I trying to look at the big picture, and I'd say what's got to be most challenging for Indiana fans is that Purdue has become the program that Indiana used to be. It's a program that has Indiana high school players. It's a program that no matter who leaves or who comes every year, they're always going to be in the Big Ten race. They lose the player of the year this year. People thought they would drop back. They haven't. They're going to finish in the top 3 or 4 in the Big Ten. They make the tournament every year. It's never comes down to whether they're going to be a bubble team. And they don't do things that, embarrasses the program. And it's what Indiana was like during the Knight era I know there's not the national championships and Final Fours like there were with Knight, but consistency of performance, consistency of competing for Big Ten title, and doing it with recruiting Indiana kids. That's what they've got. And they should be applauded for that.
Absolutely. And, this team showed fight in that Maryland game. That kind of gets lost in the fact of all of this, the end of the game shenanigans that went on. But they stayed in that game and were able to come back and fight through that. And then behind the timely shooting of Miles Rice, actually take the lead in that game and had it in hand where they could have snuck out there with a Q1 win, a much needed Q1 win. So it's there, even with the stuff that's going on, they're still there. And it's like, that's what makes it so maddening for fans, I think.
Well, that's because they have talented players that should be performing at a higher level as a group than they are. It's not a team that's put together, in terms of pieces fitting together. It could be done a lot better than that, but they've got enough pieces and enough talent overall, which if 2 or 3 guys really come and play their A game on both ends of the court, then they should be able to play with people. I mean, I think if you objectively stood away from the rosters and just had guys in a gym working out and you were picking, different teams, like tell me who's the most talented teams here. Indiana has to be one of the 4 most talented teams in the Big Ten, but they don't have the top 4 results in the Big Ten because everybody has their own reasons why. And because it's been this way for a couple of years, I think that's contributes to the frustration that you hear around the program.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. And now fans have to go, what if, I hate what ifing. We'll save what ifing for later. So the chances of Indiana getting through these next 2 games without losing both of them are very, very slim, just because
Yeah.
And it might be no matter what the situation, but they're playing a very, very good Purdue team. Then they're playing a hot Wisconsin team, a team that has just gotten better as this season has progressed. And they're playing at a place they haven't won, like you mentioned, since Bob Knight was the coach. Well, how strange would it be for all the times this to be the time that Indiana breaks that streak?
Very, very strange. And they're capable of doing it. But you look at the numbers. I'm looking at Ken Palm right now. He gives them a 13% chance of winning at Purdue, a 17% chance of winning at Wisconsin, and a 16% chance of winning at Michigan State. He's got them as at least an 11-point underdog in all three of those games. So it'd be a major upset. Now, are they good enough to win one of the three? They are. Are they good enough to win two of the three? I don't think so. And all three, I wouldn't bet that in a parlay bet because I think it'd be a foolish bet. But, as long as the games are out there, they still have an opportunity to succeed. But they're running out of time, and they're on the wrong side of the bubble in the bracket now. And, they're going to play in the Big Ten tournament, and they've never done well in that. And then at some point, there'll be two decisions that have to be made. One is, will this team play in the NIT? And two is, who's going to be the coach next year? And I think that's the direction this is going. Two decisions to make: NIT or skip it like last year, or who's the coach for next season.
Oh, I do not see NIT for this team, only because they're going to be taking that next step, and that can't be delayed. In my opinion, I think that there's no doubt a change is coming. So, and I don't think that can be delayed one bit. It just for sanity for the fans, because nothing's going to be said. There's not going to be a statement sent out unless something very different happens where they can get Woodson to announce his retirement or whatever. I don't see that personally happening. But other than that, I don't see a change happening until the end of the season. But I don't see Indiana extending that into the season when they know that it's not going to likely end well anyway. And NIT is almost embarrassing state to be in. So it's like, let's wash our hands and let's get ready to get Indiana basketball to where it should be. Hopefully that is how it's looked at. But hey, I'm not in that position making that call.
Yeah, I mean, you were there on Sunday. I wasn't. What was the crowd like? Were there a lot of empty seats?
Up top, and then there were some boos at certain points, and so it. And then you had the whole, and I don't understand, but Goody had to turn not only Woodson but maybe Yasir around to go back and shake hands. What is that about? Now, if it was just Woodson, I would get it, but why both of them? So that was kind of odd.
Yeah, I saw the video of that. That's not a good look. It's obvious the frustration and the pressure's building. I don't think there's much doubt about that. It's how could it not be? They're human beings too, and they realize, unless they're just ignoring it, that there's a tremendous amount of unhappiness among the people that are in the building, and I'm sure there's a tremendous amount of happiness within the team. I mean, there's no way those guys coming into this season thought that this was going to be another year like last year, where they were going to float on outside the NCAA tournament and not make it. I mean, there's no way with this talent level that they have on this team and the payroll they have. So this is a bigger underachievement than last season. Last season they had they could say, well, Xavier Johnson got hurt and this and that happened, but yeah, as Ryan says, I watched Louisville last night just dismantle a good, not great Wake Forest team. Wake Forest won't make the tournament, but they had them down 45-21 in the first half. They only won by 13. They kind of closed it out a little sloppy at the end, but they've now won 10 in a row. They're the second best team in the ACC. They're up to a 6th seed in the NCAA tournament, And we're talking about a program that won 12 total games the last 2 years. So it can be done. And individually, Louisville doesn't have probably somebody as good as Ballo. But collectively, the pieces fit together, and you know what their guys do? They play defense, and that's what I don't see from Indiana. I'll go back to that point when that Rice hit that three, it was like, how many times has this happened over the last few years where teams come in and have their best 3-point shooting game of the year against Indiana? It's a fatal flaw in the defensive scheme of either it's a flawed defensive scheme or it's one that's not being taught correctly, because you can't consistently be giving up that many threes.
No, and when it happens with that frequency and the numbers bear it out, there's obviously something to it. Especially when some of the teams that are not that don't have that level of success elsewhere. We've got to take a quick break from the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios. The great Rick Bozich from WDRB.com is with us. Make sure you're giving him a follow. We're back with more from the Hard Truth studios right after these messages.
Located on 325 acres in beautiful Brown County, Indiana, Hard Truth Distilling Company is the biggest and the best craft distillery around. While Hard Truth is already known for producing internationally awarded whiskeys and spirits like Hard Truth's sour mash bourbons, sweet mash, and hard road ryes, as well as their cinnamon vodka and the always popular toasted coconut rum. Hard Truth Distillery offers so much more. With a full-service restaurant, ATV, and distillery tours, as well as live music, you can spend an entire day at Hard Truth Distillery while making your entire family or group happy. And that's the Hard Truth. Hard Truth products are available across Indiana, as well as many other states. So no matter where you shop, if they don't carry your favorite Hard Truth product, tell them you want the truth, the Hard Truth. Hard Truth Distilling Company encourages you to enjoy all of their products responsibly and to never drink and drive.
If you're looking for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Advanced Realty. Cheryl Sizemore has over 2 decades of experience, and that could be the difference in getting the home you want in today's tough housing market. Reach out to Cheryl Sizemore from RE/MAX Realty at Cheryl@IndyHomePros.com or 317-701-0838. 317-701-0838. Let Cheryl Sizemore help you find the home you want today. Whether it's a night out with the family, after work with colleagues, or catching the game with friends, Bubba's 33 is the place for you. Bubba's 33 offers a mouthwatering menu of selections that are all made from scratch every day. The portions are big, but the prices are small. And with over 50 big screen TVs, you'll never miss the big game. Bubba's 33 Pizza. Andy Moore Honda is Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer for a reason. Buy a new Honda and get a 3-month break from car payments. That's right, no payments for 90 days. That includes the all-new, all-electric Honda Prologue, and you get it for just 0.9% financing. Or the 2024 Honda Ridgeline Black Edition or the Honda Accord LX, both for just 1.9% financing. Get more to your door from AndyMooreHonda.com, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer and your best place for new and used vehicles. Welcome back to the Hard Truth Distilling Company studios on this Wednesday. You've made it to the point where when you finish with us, you'll be over the hump. Did you see the St. Louis game win over VCU? Was delayed by a fan fight with like a minute 10 to go. A couple of fans were in a fight wrestling and they spilled onto the floor.
Wow.
And the game,
Last night?
I've never heard of anything like that. That's nuts. Of course, the coach there, the former Indiana State coach, and running that program. So that's kind of wild.
By the way, Jim, I looked it up. 12 threes is the most threes that Maryland's made in the Big Ten game all year.
There you go. Well, why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be? But that was a part of their offense. I mean, and they're a perimeter team. Although
We didn't even mention the fact that Indiana had a foul to give, though, and didn't give it.
Well, that's the thing that really stuck out. They ended up getting Ballo out there, and I think that worked to Maryland's advantage by just getting him kind of in the way and not being able to move quickly enough. That's another thing. They did not have the right personnel in. Now, I understand having bigs in if you're trying to block shots or whatever, but you've also got to be able to move and move with the guys that they're going to be cutting and screening because they're trying to get somebody open. And then you had at the other end, twice they had, no, we need him in. I need him in. It's like, wait a minute. Did they? I can't remember. Did they not call a timeout, or were they out of timeouts?
They were out of timeouts.
But not a good thing.
I mean, there was a contradiction after the game. I mean, Woodson said they knew what to do, and Rice said they were confused. Now, I think I'm going to believe the player. If he was the one actually asked to carry out what he was expected to do and he was confused, I'd say there was confusion. And the way it actually turned out, that was confusing.
Yeah.
And you didn't need, you just needed 1 point to get it to overtime, 2 points to win. You didn't need a 3. And you certainly didn't need a contested 3.
No. One other thing that has bothered fans and probably the media as well is when you ask Mike a question,
he doesn't
answer an answer, but not the answer to the question that you ask.
No.
And that's both convenient, but I also think I'm starting to wonder if that's how he sees it. He saw that, we had a play drawn up. Now, what he might not see is he did not get that across to the players in a manner that made any sense in a short time frame, because we see how he is when he has time to think and speak. Well, what's it going to be like when he doesn't have time in a moment of crisis like that? So I kind of feel the same way.
Well, Jim, they're just going to have to get back in the gym and, work on things like that and got to get them over the hump.
Got to get them better. Got to get them better.
Better. I wish I knew.
Got to get them better. Got to get them rebounding better. Just got to work harder. Got to work harder. I thought about it one day. I'm like, I don't have the time. I know somebody out there will, but I am surprised. I'm not going to do it, but I'll sure give you the idea. Run a looped. You don't even have to loop it. The thing is, you wouldn't even have to loop it. You could compile over these 4 years. Oh my goodness. That would probably be, maybe I should do this, because that would probably be the biggest video ever if you put out just of those answers.
There's like 6 or 8 that he just has on a cycle. He recycles the same 6 or 8.
And I hate to sit here and bash him, because I'm not trying to do that, but I think the thing that aggravates Indiana fans most is there doesn't seem to be any accountability by him. It's always, the players didn't run the right play, or this guy was hurt.
He had open shots and they didn't make them.
Shots didn't go down. Yes, there's never, I got to get them better. Well, why do you got to get them better? It goes back to when I asked Anthony Leal. I said, you've laid out a lot of the things that you feel you need to do as a team and as individually on the team. But my question was, why was it not already being done? And then that answer came as, well, winning's hard. And I'm like, I think the entire team has gotten into the habit of being able to look at it a different way than reality.
Right. I guess. I mean, because of the fact that there's a Big Ten tournament, because of the fact that there's 68 teams that go in, because of the fact it's not a great year in college basketball. If they do get on a roll, even if they'd win one of these next 2 games, they'd probably get back on the bubble. They were like the second team out last week with Lenardi. So it's not hopeless, but there's not been over the last 2 seasons any evidence of consistency of play or consistency to correct issues or solve problems to make you think that it's going to happen that way. And this, as you mentioned when we first started, is the most daunting part of the schedule. I mean, I doubt if there's another team in the league that has a 4-game stretch where they're playing at Purdue, at Wisconsin, Michigan at home, and then at Michigan State. I mean, just not. And so we'll see if you're really truly competitors and you're bought in on the concept that you're going to do something this year, you're going to win one of those 3 road games. You are, and not come up with excuses why you didn't win them. Just go win the game, and that's the only way they're going to shut people up.
All right, going on the premise, and this is just a hypothetical right now, that there is a change at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
I know Dusty May is the first thought in most fans and minds, with good reason. And if it wasn't for Chris Beard's baggage, that might be a 50-50 deal, but it's not. But how likely? Mike DeCourcy does not think that Dusty will make a move 1 year in. But I keep coming back to the fact of he did not negotiate a low buyout, an unusually low first-year buyout for no reason. And everyone talks about all of the negativity that's going on. Well, when is it not negative when your team sucks? What was it like at Kentucky last year at the end of Calipari? What was it like at Louisville last year at the end of hell, I can't even remember his name right now. I can see it. Kenny Payne. What was it like at the last? It was.
What was it like at Ohio State after they lost to Michigan in the last game of the regular season before they won the national championship? What was it like there? What's it like at Alabama football right now?
Exactly. They were calling for Ryan Day's head this year.
Exactly. Yeah. What's it like at North Carolina after they lost to Pittsburgh last night, and now they've lost, I think, 9 games? That's just the way it is if you're a program that aspires to be great. And Indiana hasn't been great for a long, long time. They had great moments in 2012 and 2013, but they haven't been great for 2 decades. But that doesn't mean that people that follow the program don't expect it to be great and want a coach in there who can, they just want a coach, in my opinion, who can make up a contender in the Big Ten every year and not have these wild ups and downs and drops and feel like there's some kind of a future. If you look at this current situation, it's hard to see there's any future because it's not just they're not winning this year. They didn't win last year. Even when they did win the 2 years previously, they flopped in the NCAA tournament and got beat the first weekend, been double-digit losses. Recruiting has been an abysmal failure with high school kids the last couple of years. They don't see a future in this. And so there's a coach out there that'll come. It might not be the first or second choice. You go back to Kentucky and Louisville. Kentucky wanted Scott Drew. He came and visited. He decided to stay at Baylor. They talked to Danny Hurley, and that didn't go anywhere. And then the third choice was Mark Pope, and some fans initially were resistant, and then everybody got on board. At Louisville, again, it was Drew, and then Dusty May, and then there might have been one other guy, and then Kelsey was the third or fourth choice, and he's done a phenomenal job. He might be the national coach of the year. So this comes to the point where if a change is made, the athletic director has to do his homework, and he's got plenty of ramp-up time right now to come up with a name, and it might not be somebody any of us are thinking about because May is the easy default name because of his connections to IU. But there are other guys out there that would be willing to take on the challenge because they know if you come to Indiana, you're going to have resources that you're not going to have at a lot of other places. So this thing I read that people are delusional. There's a lot of coaches that don't want to come there. I don't believe that. Nope. There's going to be guys that love the challenge and are smart enough to realize if they're the coach that comes and wins there, that'll become one of the best jobs in the country because they'll be exalted for what they've done in Indiana.
That's the thing that has boggled my mind is, and I've said this so many times, both NIL and the transfer portal, when that came along, that was like Indiana basketball going to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
Yeah.
It's the golden ticket, literally the golden ticket. And it just was mismanaged because the coaching hire previously was mismanaged, and it was mismanaged before that. Indiana has not been able to get out of its own way. Don't lose sight of that. It all goes back to the administration. Bad hire after bad hire. The money that has been wasted over the last 5-6 years, mind-boggling. Well over $60 million on buyouts and all of that stuff. But that's neither here nor there. We've talked about this before, but how important is it that they have to get this right? But this is like way, way, way up to the point where you have to get this right. You cannot fail a third time in a row. Green was not a failure. He just lost it there at the end. But Archie was horrible hire. And then Mike was not working out. So they've got to get it. How important?
It's 10 out of 10 important to get it right, because I think you're at a point now where fan view of the program is, frustration. There's a lot of internal squabbling among people about what they should do. And I think a more important thing of it is you've got young fans who are more impressionable, who are like, why would I want to watch Indiana basketball? They lose. It doesn't have the allure of some of the programs that win on a consistent level. And you're not going to change that overnight, but if you get the right coach in there, you can change it. And you got to rebuild the relationships in recruiting. So Braylon Mullins and a Jalen Harrelson and, some of the other guys, Caleb First and Miles Colvin and Braden Smith and all these guys go elsewhere. He's got a lot of work. He's going to have a big plate ahead of him. But as you mentioned, with NIL and the transfer portal, it's a quicker turnaround than it used to be. It took Crean until his fourth year to really make a mark. If you get the right coach in there, he can have him winning next season.
But and I think it might have been you that mentioned this. His 6-25 team only lost 2 games by like 20 plus points.
That's correct.
And of all teams to say that's because they must have played some defense along the way for Cream Team to say he had played defense. It's amazing, but they did.
Well, those teams competed. I mean, I remember coming up to those games. Yeah, they did. Yeah, it was Pritchard.
They had a lot of close games too. A lot of close games that could have gone the other way.
Yeah, but they were out talented in every game in the Big Ten. They were tremendously out talented. They only won one, but they lost a bunch of games by like 5 points or less. And you're playing with, Verdell and Tom Pritchard and Kyle Tabor and, Matt Roth and Daniel Moore and Malik Story and Nick Williams. And I mean, nobody on it, not Verdell he's not in the top 20 scorers of all time. I don't think, is he?
No, I don't think so. One of the things else that it's going back to what you were talking about is Indiana going through this long period. You're not developing new fans. Ancillary fan. You may have your graduates, which they boast. Indiana boasts about having the second largest graduating
alumni group. Yeah,
alumni. But I think part of that's because you don't even have to have gone to the school to join the alumni association. FYI. Just a little secret there. But you're not developing new fans. You're not developing the young fans who grow into older fans, who grow into buying tickets. But on the other side of that coin, Curt Cignetti in Indiana football showed, boy, wave that raw meat in front of that tiger's mouth, and they will come. Winning cures most things. And Curt Cignetti in Indiana football is a great perfect example of that. And Indiana football fans have to be stoked. Kurt Cignetti is not missing a beat recruiting wise. They just hosted in the number 8 quarterback in the 2026 class. Their quarterbacks room is stock full. Hell, they got more guys than I thought that the kid from Ball State that went there, I'm like, why would you come to Indiana? You have no chance on ever seeing, hell, you could barely see the practice field probably, much less the playing field. Maybe for better coaching, he should have gone to Ball State and got some playing time, I think, then maybe transferred. That's neither here nor there.
The high school kid who decommitted from Illinois who's coming to Indiana, is that you're talking about, the quarterback?
No, that's a wide receiver, I believe. There was a kid that was committed to Ball State that decommitted. I can't remember his name, but
he's from suburban Chicago. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, Cignetti is, as long as you brought it up, I mean, that's another thing that's going against Mike Woodson. If you have a guy who comes in 1 year, who speaks boldly and backs it up, and everything he said he backed up, and beat Purdue 62-3 or 63-3 or whatever it was, and goes to the playoff in a sport that Indiana hadn't been good in a long, long time. How did he do it? Well, he had a plan. He executed. He had a coaching staff who he believed in and likes him and trusts him. He worked the portal. And now he shows up at the basketball game and gets the largest cheer of the game and tells everybody, hey, I'm not done yet. I'm just getting started. So he evokes positivity. He evokes confidence. He evokes excitement. You want to follow something like that. You don't want to follow something that when you say, I wish I knew.
Exactly, because he doesn't say anything like that. I mean, he goes overboard a lot of times.
He doesn't have to say, I wish I knew. He knows when things go wrong. He knows what it is, and he fixes it.
Exactly. And he talked about like when they got beat at Ohio State. I mean, football coaches just seem to be better at it than basketball coaches. They're they just call it out. Well, we got beaten every phase of the game today. Yeah, we got our tails.
He knows their offensive line needs a major upgrade, and he's going about trying to fix it. He's brought in a couple guys, and they're trying to bring. I don't. They have 2 guys from Notre Dame who have visited. One already has come, and the other one's about to come. So he knows for them to take the next step, they got to get better on the offensive and defensive line. Now, whether he can do it or not is another matter, because that's a small pool of players out there who can help you get better. But he's trying to do it.
And one other note of interest there, Indiana, Brian Haynes, the defensive coordinator, had signed a memorandum of understanding in December, which I don't understand that. Why do you not just sign the contract at that time?
There's probably other clauses in there about different things, whether it's, retirement plans or country club membership.
Is the memorandum binding?
Huh?
Is the memorandum binding to the contract?
Yeah, I don't know. I never quite made it into IU law school, so I'd say it's binding, and then the contract supersedes it probably.
I made it into the Kelly school, but that was only because I was on tour with my daughter as she was taking a tour. That was the only time I'd ever been in a Kelly school building. But he signed a new deal other than that one since then, because you saw Penn State snag Jim Knowles from Ohio State. That was
$3.1 million.
That was a surprise. He had previously signed a memorandum. That previous agreement was just for $1.8 million. So obviously this one is going to be over $2 million, because I promise you Ohio State could have come back and taken that. But I wonder how many years that is for. And
Knowles, he got $1.1 million for 3 years. He got $9.3 million.
So yeah, it's crazy. But hey, you got to pay the piper, right? And the piper played the song last year, so you got to keep the band together. I didn't get to ask you actually. Do you think Dusty May would make a move? Just quick, yes or no?
I'd put it at 25%.
Really? Then see, every time somebody, I know that No, I know. I know him, but I don't know him that I can say that I have that answer. I don't know that. I'm never in his mind because he was going to Louisville for all intents and purposes. And everything I keep hearing is the reason he ended up going to Michigan at the last second was the ability to get that lower buyout. And there's nobody that has a buyout that low in their first season in a program like that. So there's no doubt that was done with purpose. I don't know if that's still something on the deal for him. Next question, Chris Beard. Would Indiana look at him if Dusty was not available?
Yes, I'll say yes. I told you this. I mean, what he did and the charges were later dropped was one of the worst things you can do. If he indeed put his hands on his fiance, girlfriend, whatever it was. Since then, he was out of the game for 1 year. This is his second year at Ole Miss. Hadn't had any other incidents. And it's a heck of a coach, and he's somebody that I think that he's the kind of coach that can win really big, and he's a Bob Knight disciple. He wore Bob Knight on his polo shirt, Ole Miss polo shirt, when he was here after the Louisville game. And I was impressed with him, as I said in the post-game interview, in terms of the way he acted with the media. He answered the questions from all visiting. There was no Ole Miss media there. He's an impressive guy. But I know there are going to be a percentage of people that are going to say, no, you can't hire Chris Beard because of what happened at Texas. And I respect that opinion. I just think that it's been 3 years now and he's kept out of trouble. So I don't know how long you keep, considering the charges were dropped. I don't know if that you could disqualify him.
I agree. Second chances. There is a coach that I know. I won't say who it is, where they are, whatever, that has something kind of similar in their background. And I've said this 1,000 times. They're one of the most, they're people that I respect most in this world today, for whom they have become the kind of leader of men they are. They are someone to look up to. And so you can't just throw people away. You can get an indication of someone's character. And so I think that is not, to not look at him would be short-sighted, especially when you're trying to do one thing, win. Now, I'm not saying win at all costs, but win. So there's that. What's up next for you?
This weekend, I'm not going anywhere because I use at Purdue Friday night. I'm not going to that. Louisville's on the road Saturday. Saturday night, I guess I might be in Lexington, but
I'm laughing because I've got a comment
I'm
up.
sorry,
Steven.
Steven.
He says, Rick's not a good person, and he's always downing IU because he's for Louisville and Kentucky. Oh, Steven, if you only knew.
Saturday night, Coach Cal comes back to Rupp Arena Saturday night. So,
oh my, that ought to be a nice, fun throwdown.
Yeah, Coach Cal's struggling right now. He's near the bottom in the SEC. I think they're next to last. Only South Carolina. Indiana's signature win out of the conference was against South Carolina, which hasn't won an SEC game.
Stephen also thinks that it's the portal. He says he does have a question before we go out. Okay. What is another coach going to do, or how is another coach going to do a better job with these people from the portal? Because that's kind of the problem. Well, it's not a problem for anybody else. I can give you 40 or 50 teams that are not having that problem. It's not the portal. It is getting the right players in your program. And it's also mixing, developing, being able to land people like, Braylon Mullins and Jalen Harrelson, who are 5-star McDonald's All-Americans that are not coming to Indiana. Getting those kinds of players, Liam McNeely. Think of the talent they could have.
Derek Queen.
Derek Queen.
Boogie Flynn.
We'll see. I wonder what happens with Zerno, the recruit? That's a big question I have, and people wonder. That's another reason. I said that was gonna be the last question. I'm gonna have to do some editing today. Zerno, why does Scott Dolson need to wait till the end of the season, or does he need to wait till the end of the season? Should he wait until the end of the season?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was a similar situation here at Louisville last year where the fan base had written off Kenny Payne even earlier than Mike Woodson has been written off, and it was inevitable, I think, what was going to happen unless he turned it around and got on a streak. Never did, and he waited till a day after the ACC tournament, and they made the move and still had a head start on a lot of other schools in terms of making a coaching change. So because Mike Woodson's a former IU player, because he's, a 2,000-point scorer, for a lot of different reasons, I think you let him finish out the year, and then you say, hey, Mike, this just isn't working, and we're going to go a different direction.
I agree. Well, brother,
you can get the word out. You can get the word out behind the scenes.
Back channeling.
Yeah, this might be open, and if it was open, who are some coaches? I mean, agents are already checking out different jobs, saying if you're going to be open, my guy might be interested. You got to have a feel for what I don't think they can afford is. I heard people mention Brad Stevens. I don't think you can do that Brad Stevens dance again unless you're convinced he's going to come. You can't go after Brad Stevens and have him publicly, consider the offer for a day or two and then say, no, I'm not going there.
Is he a legit even? Yeah, that's the thing. Is that something he would even consider, and why? Yeah. I mean, I've mentioned the fact that his daughter's supposed to be a year away from graduating high school. Okay. Is that really going to move his needle?
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a step down to go from the president or general manager, whatever he is, of the Boston Celtics to a Division I basketball coach again, unless he just has the coaching bug. But I don't know. I would think that's in the long shot category.
Absolutely. Make sure you're giving Rick Bozich a follow for all things college basketball.
Even Steven. Come back again next week, Steven. I'll try and do better for you.
Yeah, he does. Don't worry. He's loyal, if anything else. Looking forward to it. Cannot thank you enough as always, brother. It is always a pleasure. Everybody else, you're a
Thanks,
favorite
Jim.
to most everybody else. So you got that going for you.
All right. Thanks.
Even the Cubs fans.
We're only 12. We're only like 14 days away from spring training, so it won't be long.
Bated breath, baby. Bated breath.
Bye.
Appreciate you, my friend. That's going to wrap it up for us today on the program. I cannot thank each and every one of you enough. We couldn't do it without you. We're back tomorrow to do it again. Of course, Coach Shannon Griffith with us and Chris Teneri, and we'll see what else we've got coming up as Indiana takes on Purdue this weekend, and a host of other games that we'll be talking about. So until then, I hope you guys go out and have a great rest of your day. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.